All right, so it's always hard to be the last one to present, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. That was the title that was given to me, so I'll tell you a few things that I know about technology transfer in the States. I've been involved in some sense in various capacities on this topic. As I mentioned during the panel, I've been directing the Motorola Center for Seamless Communications there for 12 years now. I've had a number of contracts with companies that resulted in a good number of patents, 25 or so. And then I've also been involved with a couple of startups in the beginning of their life. And finally, I'm also involved in patent litigation cases, so I know kind of the patent story from both sides of the fence. So with that, the issue clearly is how to inspire and nurture a culture of innovation and then determine the potential commercial use of an invention or discovery, and then determine the best means to develop and market and license and commercialize in general technology. And these are issues that obviously here, as it's clear from these discussions at the European level, but definitely also in the States, people have been addressing for a long time. And interestingly enough, very recently, less than 2 months ago, President Obama signed this America Invents Act. It was signed on September 16, and I have here the URL about it. So some of the key elements of this act, as mentioned here, these 5 points, to implement this fast-track option for patent processing within 12 months. The US Patent Office has about 850,000 patents backlog, so it does take longer than that, and speeding the process obviously can benefit everybody involved. And actually 1 and 2, the 2 is the consequence of the first one. Reducing litigation. Litigation, for better or worse, it's a big thing in the States. Very involved, very lucrative, very this, very that. And actually, it's a process, having been involved, as I mentioned, quite a few times. It's so non-technical since jury is used in the States. So you have this, you try to invalidate an existing patent, and you have to talk to ma and pa there on the jury and persuade them for your points. Increasing the patent quality, which means looking for examiners that don't just have a bachelor's degree in engineering, as is usually the case right now. And also increasing the ability of American investors to protect their IP abroad by synchronizing the activities of the US Patent Office and European international offices. At the same day, along with the signing of this act, there were a lot of, a number of other initiatives that were announced, which I mentioned here. So NIH launched a center to assist biotech entrepreneurs. There's a national bioengineering blueprint that was developed. This Calder Foundation with NSF, they launched the University Commercialization Prize with the American Academy for the Advancement of Sciences, and that was mentioned in today's talk as well to further promote, I guess, entrepreneurship. Then the government created this endowment on a lab to market innovations, and there are 4 universities involved right now. New tools and license agreements for startups and business, new help for more small business, and finally this university, President University commitment to commercialize. That's an initiative. So this last point here is just taking maybe shape and form. There are a good number of research universities, Northwestern is one of them, that are part of this commercialization initiative. And they do have this webinar series. The first one took place a couple of days ago. So how the universities plan to respond to this, this initiative by the president. So there is this National Council of Entrepreneurial Tech Transfer on top, which is quite interesting. And this one is just an organization of universities that want to promote best practices, connect investors with economic development organizations, and they have an annual conference where all kind of issues are discussed and addressed. This year the conference is in January. However, the registration is closed by now. But an interesting point there is that there are quite a few international participants in this conference that share experience and also utilize their knowledge of how to go about advancing this. Now this NCT2 also has a library of startups, and the statistic is that there are 6,000 university startups that were created since 1980. So it's a healthy number in a 30-year period, and in an interactive way one can go there and see which startup is where and so on. As expected, there's more concentration on East Coast, Midwest, and California. There's a big space there in the middle of the United States, as everybody knows. So, in my opinion, people interested can follow the webinars or go to this particular conference or see this Invest Act, which can go to the White House webpage and find out about all the fine details. And there are plenty of, I would think, ideas that could easily be implemented in the European community. Now, since, as hopefully probably became clear from the discussion, in the States, it's a long history, long tradition, part of the culture of creating technology and commercializing it. So each and every university has a specific office by the name of technology transfer or innovation and new ventures office, INVO as it's called at Northwestern, that really provides all the building blocks of the chain of conceiving an idea all the way to commercializing it and having a startup. And using this as an example, because I know this office, I've interacted quite a few times with them. The three objectives is faculty outreach, to really come and connect with the faculty and motivate them and provide guidance and so on. Then provide the business development aspect of it, to facilitating alliances, drafting a commercial plan, dissemination of the invention, and also financial and management mentorship, and then also protect and manage the IP rights. Okay, so there are a lot of building blocks in this process that it's important that somebody has gone through that once or twice, and then things are probably ingrained in their mind. So, as already mentioned, there are a number of steps, from the idea to invention disclosure, evaluating the idea, deciding whether or not to apply for a patent. Patent is approved, and then there's business planning, marketing, licensing, and royalty collection, and so on. And again, the office and offices like that again exist in all universities. Just take the professor and the grad student alike by hand and walk them through all the steps. So one knows about the copyright policy. These are the things you find out from day one, that you own your copyright to your papers and books, but if you utilize extraordinary resources from the university, then the university owns the copyright. Then there's very specifically drafted and hammered out policy that comes to patent and invention. So we have to define what's an invention or discovery or tangible research property. These are, let's say, masks that to fabricate something. And then it's clear who owns what when it comes to rights, and how to stimulate the timely disclosure, how to describe the basic principles of the patenting process, and how at the end to commercialize and distribute these patents. So when to disclose, as I mentioned, everybody knows there that if you want to get an international patent, then don't publish first, submit. But if it's just a US patent, then you have a year after publication. There is a new, the instrument was always there. It's called Provisional Patent, which means that you establish the submission date, and then you have a year to either abandon the submission or file for a regular patent. So the provisional patent is something that each of us can do. It costs only $60 US, and you do it electronically. You submit it over the web. And of course, so the provisional patent can be, you can just put a PhD thesis there, for example, right? And again, you have a year, and now what usually happens if submitting for patents costs money. Actually, the number you hear is that it costs about $50,000 to just go through to acquire a patent. So one scenario is that you have this great idea that it's in a PhD thesis, but you're not willing to spend the money. Of course, you should go to the university, but if the university doesn't want to file, then a possibility is that you apply for a provisional, and then you have a year to persuade a company or an investor to go for the patent and utilize your company and have an agreement that way. Now, if it's a federally funded project, NSF or NIH funded it, then there's no patent policy there. And since you use university resources to invent, then the patent is owned by the university. Now, if a company sponsors the work, then there is a specific agreement that just determines about the story about publications. Before you publish, you have to show the manuscript to the company, and then you have typically 4 months between you and company to decide what you can publish, either remove things and publish, or they file for a patent. And then when it comes to intellectual property, there is the background IP, which the IP you bring into the project, and in that case, what I have in the center I'm directing, then the company can use the background IP as well in a non-exclusive, royalty-free, worldwide, irrevocable license, without the right to sub-license. And then there is a project IP, the one that is developed during the process, and then that can be Northwestern only, or joined with Motorola, or Motorola alone. And there are, rules and regulations that exactly control all these things. And there's always the export control legislation that one has to always keep in mind. It was last year that a professor in Tennessee was indicted because he was using federal money, in that particular case, Department of Defense, and ended up just giving a lecture in China about things that were under export control, and just has to serve now, apparently. So it's not a light point. So then, after the patent is filed, there's development, marketing, licensing, and then the university, again, for the patents that are owned by the university, is there to assist in the whole thing. So the university might hire outside agents to facilitate this, and then may enter into licensing agreements. Due to a recent legislation there, the Bayh-Dole legislation, the university gives license priority to startups. So if, again, I've invented and Northwestern owns the patent because I did it with federal money, but I did it using Northwestern facilities, then if I'm interested in starting a company, Northwestern should license the technology to me. That's what the legislation says. But also it could go into equity participation, stock options, and so on. There's a specific description of who gets what. So at Northwestern, if it's under $50 million, the cumulative income, then the inventor gets 1/3, and then the rest gets, the administration gets 1/3, and so on. The marketing, the university also is responsible for marketing, so it has to just determine the attractiveness, the commercial attractiveness by answering those 4 questions, determining the technical risk, the market risk, the financial and regulatory policy risks. There are quite a few commercialization resources at Northwestern, so you can get consulting by the various centers there. There is a commercialization clinic that is run 4 times a year, and you can just say, I'm interested in starting a company and I need some free to the faculty consulting of how to do it. And then there's quite a bit of mentoring on entrepreneurship, the Chicago mentors, but also this is the Farley Center. I just want to show here. So, yeah, this is a center at Northwestern for entrepreneurship and innovation. So among the various activities, there are courses that were mentioned here that may be missing from most universities, and curriculum, yeah. So there are undergraduate courses shown here, principles of entrepreneurship, engineering entrepreneurship, and MU Vention. It's a web-based course. There are also graduate courses. Both undergraduate and graduate can get what's the word? It's not a diploma, it's not a second degree, but a certificate on entrepreneurship. So you can get, as a graduate student, courses like the ones mentioned here. Actually, back to some of the issues that were mentioned of taking pride, I guess, on this is Nikhil Siddhi. It was one of my undergraduate advisees. So he graduated last year. He started a company. He made it into this all-star student entrepreneur. And for 2011, the projected income for his company is around $10 million. So I'm not sure if he will become a millionaire right away, but it's something that is happening, I guess, all over the place, especially with these young guys that better understand. So his company is doing something that if you, as a company, you want to advertise on the web instead of going to the different locations, let's say, and deciding how much to spend for advertisement and so on, you go to his company, and then based on traffic, he follows based on what you want to advertise, will do the allocation of the money you want to invest among the different Facebook and Twitter or whatever might be. So it's not super heavy engineering, you might say, but it's already profitable. And then we have the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern, one of the top management schools in the States, and there is this commercialization lab. So if you're interested in drafting a business plan, you go there and the grad students will just help you. It becomes a project for the class, so help you put together this business plan and so on. There is legal guidance, and then all kinds of networking organizations, space and facilities. There's an incubator next to the university, and so on and so forth. So the whole plan and chain. So if again, the IP is funded by a company, then it's a smooth transition. If not, then the university has all the means to go out and so on. In my opinion, universities, at least judging from Northwestern, are a little bit on the more aggressive side nowadays. They want really to have a big stake at the IP, and that makes it hard. As a professor at times, I found the company wants to fund my work, but then takes probably 6 months to go through the agreement. Nevertheless, I can see the point by Northwestern, because there is this recent Lyrica story. So one of my colleagues there in chemistry, Rich Silverman, he developed this pregabalin. I'm not a chemist. And this is the chemical that is used in the marketed drug Lyrica. So it's a successful drug. In 2006, it brought 1.2 billion in sales, and in 2010 was approved in Europe. So because actually there are 16 patents behind this, because of the 16 patents, Northwestern sold part of the royalty, not everything, in 2007 for $700 million. And actually now it exceeded $1 billion. So just from the work of one professor that developed these patents from federal money, more than $1 billion has come into Northwestern so far, and not all the royalties have been sold. So, you know, this was actually the largest sale ever of royalty stream for a pharmaceutical product. So, you know, we saw quite a few benefits in graduate fellowships and this and that, and then there is this new building named after him, Silverman Hall, at the tune of, I don't know, $80 million building, and so on. There is, as an example, at Northwestern, I've interacted with this Center for the Commercialization of Innovative Transportation Technology. So here, this is a center that wants to fund, it's funding translational innovation gap research projects. So I've worked with them, I was funded, so in submitting a proposal, the investigator has already to have found a company that is interested in contributing either in terms of money or in-kind contribution, and is interested in the technology that will be developed. So from day one, it is crystal clear that the relationship is there, and therefore the technology transfer is relatively smooth. It deals with transportation problems, and as expected, it was just monitoring highways with videos and determining abnormal events and things of that nature. I mentioned here the Media Lab. It's a well-known lab. It's interesting there that there's 70 companies that sponsor the lab, and it reminds me a little bit of the, well, it has a difference and the similarity with the networks of excellence, in the sense that there are typically more than one companies involved, although the funding comes in this case by the European Union. But nevertheless, it's a lot of companies that have to share IP. They share a lot of other benefits: technology transfer, interactive demonstrations, brainstorming, student recruitment. That's a big thing. Also with the Northwestern Center, a lot of our students ended up at Motorola. And then the intellectual property is also shared by the sponsors in a royalty-free license. Now, some other mechanisms that facilitate interaction with industry and therefore technology transfer is this program that is funded by NSF. So it's an Industry University Cooperative Research Center program. So in that, the NSF wants to establish this partnership between universities and industry, and it acts as a catalyst. It does not provide some seed money to establish the center just for administrative purposes, and it's expected, the funding is for 5 years, and it's expected that after 5 years the center becomes self-sustained. But again, the funding from day one, the major funding for doing the research, comes from industry. So there are similar issues regarding IP and so on. And interestingly enough here, international collaborators can be part of this process. There's another program by NSF, GOLI, that also tries to just act as a catalyst in establishing this relationship between industry and universities. And as spelled out here, it's focusing on providing opportunities for faculty and postdocs and students to go to industry, but also opportunities for industrial scientists to come to academia and spend some time there, and also is funding research that is, out of the box, not funded by the regular mechanism, but it's quite futuristic and so on. And finally, another important mechanism for facilitating technology transfer and for funding startups is through these SBIRs and SDTRs, Small Business Innovative Research and Small Business Technology Transfer. And the difference is that, so for both of these projects, you have to have a small company under 500 people and the university partner and submit. And there are two phases. The first phase is just $200,000 or so for 6 months, and then the second phase is $1 million for a year, and during that period you should have the product ready and be able to commercialize it. So the mission stated here to promote technological innovation, and the goals is to stimulate innovation and strengthen federal research and development needs, increase the private sector commercialization of innovation derived from federal research and development funding, and to foster and encourage here participation by socially economic disadvantaged people. So this is the main mechanism again, that if you have federal funds, NSF, NIH, Department of Defense and so on, and you develop IP, then it's owned by the university since you did the work at the university, and you can either sit back and do nothing and let the university see how they can commercialize it, or team up with a startup, and the startup can be your startup. If you'll have to take a leave from the university for 6 months or a year, and you become the PI on the startup, and then somebody else from the university, and through, again, this means trying to commercialize the technology. And there's quite a bit of money that goes here. So the number is that for fiscal year 2009, $2.4 billion were spent for just promoting, again, this small business research. And this, small business is one form of the startup, right? This is made in, if you get into the second phase, then this can provide some funding, obviously, for the first year and a half. The other way is, again, to go out and ask for venture capital money or angel money and so on. So my final comments here is that it is indeed true that there's quite a bit of history in the States, in academia that I know well and I try to describe here briefly, of a culture of really educating entrepreneurs. And this is actually, in my 28 years there in academia, I would say this has been intensified in the recent past. As time goes on, you see more and more the kids and the schools providing all the things I mentioned and so on. But again, the mechanism is there, the rules are there, you know the rules from day one, what it takes, the buzz is there, it's in the environment, the kids are educated like that, so it's part of the educational system. As I already mentioned, in my opinion, the smoothest technology transfer is again when the work is funded by industry, right? So you have the agreement and the company is vested into that, right? I mean, to put it differently, I have probably close to over 15 patents, joint patents with Motorola and Northwestern that I'm a co-inventor, and I don't think I would proceed with most of them if Motorola was not involved. I don't see the point if you have a patent on building a system and apparatus for doing video smoothing and compression or this or that to by itself. I mean, it's not in pharmaceutical, it's not going to be the new Lyrica by itself having much value, but it has a lot of value in a company if it's part of a portfolio. They participate in the standardization effort, and that serves really a good purpose. So, therefore, when the university is doing the marketing, you might say there's a limited success. Of course, we have the Lyrica case to prove you wrong, but really the means and the way there is to go the startup direction, which is happening on a daily basis. I mean, we are a 50 people department, and I would say there are probably a couple of startups every year that are happening there. And we're not in Silicon Valley. The situation is it's happening at a much faster rate for schools that are in Silicon Valley or so. So this is all I had to say. I'm not sure if I spent more time than I had, but I'll be glad to answer any questions. Getting late. Yeah.
So we also do a lot of industrial projects together with industry, and there I have always the impression that the negotiation of the IPR takes the longest time. So the research project has duration, but negotiation of just the IPR part takes much longer than that. You mentioned that that the university helps you in negotiating these issues, and that the IPR stays at the university as long as is this a general rule over the entire US, or is this something that is individually negotiated?
Wait. The university helps. It's not helping. The university is in charge. I mean, I talk to a company on technical grounds, and then if we agree to proceed, then unfortunately or fortunately, the lawyers step in, and you know, so that part is clear. Now, yeah, what's in the agreement in the company? Typically, judging from my center, then you can have university-owned IP or joint IP with the company, or just company as a result of this project. So if you're funded by the company, and again you do everything with your group, then the university owns the IP, yeah.
Okay, and this is similar to all the universities. So I'm asking therefore because often the companies they start negotiating with exclusive IPR, and it's always difficult.
Yeah.
And if one university does it in the one way and the other in the other way, it's getting more difficult to negotiate.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what each and every university is doing. It's not public domain knowledge. So yeah, if the company wants exclusive rights, at Northwestern is not going to fly, for better or worse. But in other schools it might be. Now a trick some companies might play is that one has to be careful, is that they kind of give a gift to the university, no strings attached, but then they hire the professor as a consultant and the student as an intern, and the IP is developed at the company while the student is interning and the prof is consulting. But then one has to be careful in that case not to use any university facilities or use that outcome into the thesis of the student and so on. So there are, you know, all kind of things that one has to be careful about. But the exclusive rights, I would think it's pretty hard for a company to get in any US school. Sorry?